every school is different. I don't think I've ever seen two identical programs. Communities are different, the school is different, the atmosphere is different, where you start, where you take them. So they have to sometimes experiment and find out what works with them. I always taught that mantra was don't change anything your first year except bad intonation.
You have to pick your battles, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One thing we talk about in our class is show planning. There is a template to be able to help you actually do that with, timelines and talking about, the importance of, okay, well, it's just not something that happens. It's something that has to happen really, really soon, early on the front end of things. As soon as one season's done, you got to be thinking about the next season. And how do you do that?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Marching Roundtable podcast. This is Tim Hinton, the beast of the marching arts, and we're talking about how to make your marching band better, especially in the context of marching methods courses that we all had or didn't have in college, and also Wayne Markworth's wonderful book, The Dynamic Marching Band. And the man is here. Wayne Markworth, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. Glad to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. And of course, thanks for rounding up these two ringers that we have here to talk with today. Really excited to have them here. Doug Bush is here from the University of Nebraska. Doug, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tim. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. And also from Kansas State University, Dr. Alex Wimmer is here. Alex, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing great. So before we jump into the meeting, I'm going to go back around and ask you each to sort of briefly introduce yourselves, sort of how long you've been there, how you teach the course, that kind of thing briefly. Wayne, I'll start with you. You were, until very recently, teaching at Wright State University.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit. Everybody knows who you are, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Wayne Markworth. I taught high school band for 36 years, 35 of them at Centerville, Ohio. And then when I retired in 2005, I can't believe it's been that long, I started teaching marching band methods at Wright State University, which is here in Dayton. And so it's been 20 years of doing that. Our particular class is fairly long, so we tag on a little bit of jazz pedagogy towards the last few weeks of it, just to get the students to get their feet wet on that a little bit, because they don't have any other opportunities. So that's that. Later I can tell you how the book came about and how it was connected to the class.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be talking about that for sure. So Doug, tell us about yourself, please.
Well, I was a career music educator, high school band director, spent 19 years, taught in Kentucky and Ohio. And actually, when I was in Ohio, that's when I met Wayne. I was right down the road in Cincinnati area. And we were in the same competitive circuit. And in fact, I remember going to Centerville High School for meetings when we were just starting mid-states. And so anyway, connection with him there. But I've been teaching marching band methods at the University of Nebraska since 2002. And I've been the assistant director of bands here since 2003, working with the marching band, mainly athletic bands, but I also work with a couple of concert bands, student teachers, pep band. I mean, it's pretty all-inclusive, I guess. So.
I think everybody would be shocked if they actually realized how much you guys do when you're doing those athletic bands and all the rest of it. So, Alex, tell us about yourself, please.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Nebraska, actually just right up the road from where Doug is right now. I grew up in Gretna, Nebraska, and then I did my undergraduate at University of Nebraska at Omaha, and then I ended up teaching in Gretna, Nebraska, high school band, middle school band, marching band as well. And then I came to K-State to get my master's and my PhD here, and here I am still. Very fortunate to be sitting in this chair. This is my 9th year on faculty here at K-State. And very similar to Doug, I primarily work with the marching band. I also teach marching band techniques to undergraduates every spring. And then I teach marching band techniques to, we have 2 graduate courses, one that's offered every odd fall, and then one that is offered on a 3-year cycle for our summer master's program. As well too, and I use the text that we're talking about today, in all 3 of those courses as well. And then along with that, I conduct the second ensemble here at K-State. I teach the advanced conducting course. Work with the basketball pep band as well. Work with the volleyball pep band. And a variety of other things that I'm sure Doug already covered when he was speaking as well. So that's just a little bit about my role here at K-State.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. So our premise, everybody, is that we all want to have a better marching band wherever we're teaching and whatever we're doing. And we might have had the advantage of having a marching methods or marching techniques course, but we might not have. So Wayne, you have the Dynamic Marching Band book. And of course, you and I created an online version of a marching methods course that everybody, you can find at marchingartseducation.com. And I'm mentioning that because we're going to be talking about marching methods courses. We're going to be talking about how those work in the college environment. But I also sort of want to set this up by saying, listen, even if you've been teaching a really long time or you're brand new, most band directors out there don't have a giant staff. Most bands are like, maybe there's that one band director, maybe they're lucky enough to have a drum guy or girl teaching, maybe they have a guard person. So there's a lot the band director needs to know. And listen, here's what I want to say, everybody. We don't expect you to be a wizard at every bit of it. So you need to have access to resources to find out what you don't know, somebody to call, or maybe a book or a course to address. So that's why we're talking about Wayne's book, Dynamic Marching Band, because you need to have access to that, whether online, whether on your bookshelf, so that you can get all the information you need. So Doug, I'll just randomly start with you. It seems impossible to me that you can teach a college student everything they need to know in one course. That's not really possible. So how do you decide how to handle that?
I can't take credit for this quote. Craig Cornish came up with this quote, but he said that getting your undergraduate degree in music education is a license to learn your job. We can't cover everything, right? Sometimes I feel like that working at the university level, we're always reacting to what's happening out in music education. We're not necessarily leading it, we're reacting to it and then trying to address it with our students, trying to navigate the big ship. So all that to say, even in the marching methods course, I tell my students I can't necessarily cover every single situation you're going to be in. So you're trying to just set a framework, something for them to build on when they get out. Give them enough information that they're able to get started and then continue to learn as they're working in their program, and set it up in such a way that they want to keep learning. I think that's also key. You hear stories about people that get out, that get their degree, and then they don't go to workshops. They don't look for opportunities. They kind of seclude themselves even. And so I'm always encouraging the students that you always need to have people around you. You need one person that's ahead of you to help pull you. You need somebody behind you that you can pull and work with everybody together. So those are things I talk about in the course. And what I love about Wayne's book is it does that. It sets everything up so that you can decide what kind of marching program you want to have. It doesn't tell you what kind of program to have. It gives you the information so that you can make those decisions about everything about your program.
Alice, I'm going to let you speak to all of that too.
Well, Doug articulated it really, really well. And, for my undergraduate course, we go through the entire book. I make all the students read every single chapter because they don't know what they don't know. And until they, read it or, see it for themselves, they don't really have a good idea of just not only the wealth of knowledge, but the depth of knowledge that they could potentially have. And so, everything that Doug said, we do the exact same thing. And we talk about it in class, not every single chapter and every single little detail, but there are certain things that we unpack, starting with the philosophy, what is a competitive marching band? What is a non-competitive marching band? Also the styles, and then how many layers of nuances there are within competitive, non-competitive, and the style that you also choose, which is best for your community. And then just kind of, one step at a time, just taking things and saying, all right, well, if you're going to be thrust into a program as a new teacher, whether it's in an urban area, a rural area, a well-supported area, or opposite, what can you do from a foundational standpoint to build your program as a new teacher, taking over for someone that has had a garnished reputation, or coming into a situation where you are able to build from the ground up? How are you going to set those building blocks, those foundational pillars with your program in a way that is sensible, in a way that is not only good music education, but great for your students, enriching for your community, et cetera, et cetera. And the book does a fantastic job of doing that, along with providing just incredible resources. One thing we talk about in our class is show planning. There is a template to be able to help you actually do that with, timelines, and talking about, the importance of, okay, well, it's just not something that happens. It's something that has to happen really, really soon, early on the front end of things. As soon as one season's done, you got to be thinking about the next season and how do you do that. And then the complementary resources in I use primarily the paper text, just everything in the back of the book to be able to help build that program, the visual program, the music program, the instructional side of things, etc. So they get that from us, from the college marching band and also their high school experiences, but they've never been on the other side of the podium, so to speak. So be able to see it from that perspective and to kind of tell them, hey, you have to be thinking about this, and here is a very structured, very procedural, very sequential way of doing it, a linear way of looking. It talks about the learning styles in the book too. This is not only the things you talk about in your ed classes, but this is how you actually do it from the ground up.
Yeah, that's really well said. And listen, everybody, if you're listening to this conversation, again, I want to remind you, you don't have to know everything, but you need to know where to find out what you don't know or how to get help or what are the resources. And Wayne's book and the online course are both things that I think could really be essential. Now, Wayne, I want to jump to you because you wrote this book, I'm assuming because you felt like, wow, there's not the book I want to see out there yet.
Right. So I like I said, I retired in 2005, and so I taught the first class in the spring of 2006, and then we actually moved it to the fall and taught again in the fall of 2006. But so when I found out I was going to teach the class, I started to do some research and find, well, what textbooks are out there that I could use for a college class. And at that point in time, 2006, the newest book was 25 years old, and it was very generalized. It didn't get into all the different sections and details and so forth. So kind of used that a little bit, but I just started bringing in all my materials because like any old band director, I had file cabinets and computer files just filled with materials that you'd use with the students, used in classes, used with marching band. So I just changed them and transferred them into what might be helpful in a college class. And about halfway through the semester, I was saying, this is crazy. It would be much easier if it was all in a book. So I kind of took the summer to write a rough draft of the book and used the fall class as guinea pigs for that and got a lot of input. And when I took all the chapters too, I tried to get as much info and help from people I knew out in the field, percussion folks, color guard folks, and everybody was very helpful. It was great. Hearing Doug and Alex talk about how the book has helped them just warmed my heart. So thank you, gentlemen. And what I really liked hearing was that it's a resource. And when I was putting the book together, that's what I wanted it to be. And Tim, like you said, they can't know it all, but they need to know how to find things, where to dig a little bit deeper. And so I wanted the book to be a resource where they could go back and when they started teaching, or a resource for young band directors out there, or old band directors for that matter. And the other thing, I think Alex mentioned the supplemental materials that are free to download on the website. Tim, I think we wound up with 80 or 90 different files there. Right. Worksheets, Word documents, spreadsheets, things like daily rehearsal schedules, marching band camp rehearsal approach or schedules, attendance policies. And they're all in either Word document or Excel so that the students or the young directors can open that up and then change it any way they want to fit their desires and their particular system. But when most of us started, we had to start with an empty folder and an empty file cabinet and how to create all those things. So I really wanted to save the students, our students that were going to be going out and being directors and young directors, save all that time and give them some place that they can start. So happy to hear that's working.
Yeah, it's great. So again, everybody, you can go to Marching Arts Education to find the book, to find the online digital version of the book, the ebook. and to find the online course that we've created. So Doug, I know you're a drill designer as well. So I'm going to ask you, like, just using that specific part of the world of marching band, it is constantly changing. Now we're all running around, staging, standing. Like, it doesn't look like drill when I was marching back in the day, right? So there's some of that's there. But so part of the stress of it for directors is just that it's constantly changing and you're trying to keep up.
Absolutely, and that's why I say the book is so good at being a framework of and directing you to be thinking about those things, having those discussions, right? And I know that you mentioned this earlier. The directors, a lot of them, they are the staff. Maybe it's them and one other person. But I always tell my students, like, okay, you have two people. That gives you can at least have a discussion about your show. You know, what ideas you have. How are we going to tell this story? What kind of visual things do we need to have? Do we need to have props? What do we need to wear? What music are we playing? All that stuff. At least have someone to bounce those ideas off of. And so yes, it's changed a lot. And I don't necessarily, in my marching band techniques class, the way we have it put together, there are two mini courses. So one mini course is built around Wayne's book. That's the marching techniques class. So it's all the organizational things of being a high school marching band director. And then there's another skinny class or mini class that is just drill design. And so in the marching techniques class, we talk about design enough that hopefully they recognize good design and and how things work a little bit, but we don't really get in the nuts and bolts of things in there. But I use what's in Wayne's book to get them started toward that journey of starting to think that way. And our class met today, and I may have mentioned to them a couple of times we would be recording. So, and I said, and it's going to be about this book. Here's my old, really well worn hard copy. It's going to be about this book. And I asked them, I said, what would you like me to tell them, you know, during this session? And one of my students said, I like how the book is organized. I like the different sections, how things are laid out. It's really easy, and see, I'm doing this now. It's really easy when you start talking about what we do, that everything is related, right? You start talking about music, then all of a sudden you're talking about staging, and then you're talking about color guard, and then you're talking about, and I think it's difficult to write a book like this to where you can actually communicate the different facets of it and keep focus where it needs, you know what I mean? Where it needs to be and not just jumping around. And so that was something that the students shared. I just asked in class today, what do you want me to say? And so piped up with that.
That's awesome. And of course, if a lot of directors who don't have a large staff they can hire use their student leaders in really, extreme important ways to help rehearse and teach and maybe even be a part of those idea sessions. So go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and I was going to say, that's one thing that I talk about in my class is grow your own staff. That's basically what I did in Ohio. I mean, I got there and there wasn't anybody but me. And so over a period of years, we started growing our own staff. So.
That's great. So Alex, how about you? Do you want to compare how you do this as well, using the book as a framework?
Yeah, so it's very similar to what Doug just said. You know, there's a portion of the class. The first, I would say, 2/3 of the class, we go through the book and we talk about, you know, all the nitty gritty as much as we possibly can. And then the last third, I do something similar. We get a student subscription to Pieware, and they get to design, you know, their own show based off of, you know, a stock tune. And we implement some of those planning aspects that are outlined in the book, from like a visual design point, musical staging, because the way that the music is orchestrated and scored, therefore placement on the field is determined by this. And I give them like a mock ensemble to be able to play with the numbers and then put dots on the field. And I tell my students it's not about the outcome, because, you know, everyone's first time using Pieware is their first time using Pyware. I'm still trying to figure it out right now. I really should enroll in some of Doug's classes that he offers in his curriculum. But
we all are still learning.
Well, right, exactly. But but we take a lot of those things and we add to that, to the drill design piece. And then some other things that we do that are also kind of based on the book is we do I have my students do a purchasing assignment. So, you're walking into a program and here is what you have. Here's what you need. You have, you are living life in a vacuum and the school board's going to say yes. So, here, maybe have a low option, have a realistic option, shoot for the pie in the sky. And that goes for equipment, that goes for props design, that goes for, guard equipment, that goes for percussion equipment, and even also staff, and then budgeting for a contest, transportation request, fees for the contest, things of that nature too. So that's another thing that we do on top of that. And then the other things that I have my students do is I make them make a handbook based off of, the book. So the book outlines, here's all the things that it takes to build a program from a music content perspective. All right, so how do we package that and deliver that to parents who are going to be sending their son or daughter into your program? Why should they do that? Why should they trust you? How are you going to organize your handbook to have all of this information to give to them in a sensible way, which I think the book does extremely well. And it's a good basis for that too. And then, building a calendar and, just putting everything on paper and thinking about, okay, so as a band director, you're in charge of all these musical things. And here are some of the other things that they don't teach you in our classes that you have to be able to prepare for. And I try to make as many connections to the book, to the text as possible when they're kind of going through that based on their lived experiences and based on, this idealistic world that they're about ready to go into in 2 or 3 years, to kind of help build as many bridges as possible.
Interesting. Before I jump to Wayne again, Doug, at what point in the student's time does your class take place?
They take it generally their first semester of their senior year. So these are students getting ready to go out and student teach next semester.
So it would be the fall semester?
Yes.
How about you, Alex?
Anywhere from their second year all the way up until their senior year. So my class is considered an elective in the program of study, and so they're not required to take it. However, a lot of instrumental music ed majors will take it.
Gosh, I can't imagine not taking it. I mean, you hear these stories about people that haven't had any marching methods course or anything, and then suddenly there they are in charge of a whole group of students, and good luck, Godspeed, which was Wayne, it was one of the reasons that not only you created the book, but you and I put that course together too, because we knew that there were students who either didn't have access to a course or somehow didn't fit it into their curriculum. We wanted them to be able to get the information.
So one thing I noticed, and Doug reminded me of this, about how the activity is ever changing, and it's one of the reasons I called it dynamic, but especially the visual program. And originally in the book, the chapter was called the marching program, and when we made it an ebook, we changed it to the visual program. One of the things I like about the ebook is we can change things really easily. I can change the typo, and at least for the online version, it's fixed right away. And we did in the springtime. We did a bunch of upgrades and changed it. But the original print version came out in 2008. I think we started the ebook version in 2016. Is that right, Tim? 2018. Yeah. Anyway, somewhere around that, and so much changed over the time, and so much more was added when we went to the ebook version. But right after the pandemic, maybe 2021, I decided to do, an upgrade to the ebook version, and so I asked on some Facebook band directors group, going to do a little update, and I thought it would, just be fix a few things, and I haven't done it in a day or two. And I said, what kinds of things have changed in marching band in the last 6 years. And overnight, I got 40 replies. And so it turned out to be a 2 or 3 week project. But most of them had to do with the visual program, and some of the things that you had mentioned. So it's ever changing.
Well, and of course, even in the music program, we now have sound design and we have amplification, perhaps, and we have a front ensemble that's constantly evolving. So it's it's a lot to keep up with. And I guess our premise, everybody, is you need to keep paying attention. You just need to never stop learning. You need to commit yourself to always pay attention, see what's going on. You don't have to be able to do everything, but you need to know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like Alex, like I feel like I'm sure you tell your students, like, you don't have to be able to do it, but you need to know, I need to find somebody to help me with this, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Doug said that at the beginning of the conversation too. You have to surround yourself with people that are better than you. Not only people that will pull you, but people that you will be able to follow, to align your vision with, and just to make yourself better. Which I think is the reason why we're doing what we're doing right now, is just to make everyone better too. And it's precisely that, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, continue asking questions. And as a younger director, I think it was easy to be intimidated and to be afraid to go talk to Wayne Markworth. Um, but what I've always found is uh, people that have fantastic groups are willing to help you. They are willing to say, you're like, how did you do that? Well, we did this and this and this. I mean, they'll share, and you just need to step out and have the faith to ask, to have the confidence to ask those questions, and be willing to admit you don't know everything. And I think that's, for me, that was a problem. So I was
Well,
like, I was a know-it-all. So.
I'll weigh in on that too, Doug. Like when I was a young, intimidated, just starting out band director, that was my biggest fear, was that my students would find out all the things I didn't know. And man, I would tell people this all the time. You need to get over that. I wish I'd gotten over it sooner, because once I realized that my students didn't expect me to know everything, they just wanted me to love them and work as hard as I could, and they were fine, right? So the premise is not that I have to know everything, but do I know how to find out?
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And I love that you mentioned that the great people out there that are being successful are always happy to give you advice, to share. I mean, even people at the very top level of like the drum corps activity that I've interviewed, they've always said, man, I don't want everybody to make all those mistakes that I made. If I can save somebody, I mean, Scott Chandler from Blue Devils says that every time I talk to him. Let's share some information so that they don't make all those stupid mistakes I made when I was starting.
Absolutely. And I guess another part of Wayne's book that we haven't talked about is talking about the culture of your group. And as a director, what better way to model, learning and being curious and wanting to expand what you're doing, than showing your students that you're going to talk to someone, that you're going to ask questions, that you're bringing someone in. All those things says to them, hey, Doug Bush still wants to learn. He's been doing this for 40 years. He still wants to learn. 45. Anyway, yeah.
Well, if you're like me, I don't do the math anymore. I just I've been doing
math
it a
is
long
hard.
time. I've stopped doing the math. This is one of my premises for getting a little bit older in life. Wayne, is there anything else about this that we haven't mentioned that you want to bring up?
Maybe highlight something I think Doug said, or Alex, or both, is in the book. I try not to dictate this is how you have to do it, but present lots of different ways to do it, give pros and cons, and let people decide. And made it real clear, and always made it real clear to the students, I'm sure they do too, is every school is different. I don't think I've ever seen two identical programs. Communities are different, the school is different, the atmosphere is different, where you start, where you take them. So they have to sometimes experiment and find out what works with them. I always taught that mantra was don't change anything your first year except bad intonation.
You have to pick your battles, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right. So anything else, anybody else, any of you guys came in with about this topic or the book that you wanted to mention?
To build upon what Wayne just said, one between the lines thing that I bring up with our class when I teach it is that no matter what style, what philosophy you embody, good is good. And I think the book does a really good job of articulating that without even have to say it. A concert B flat is a concert B flat. Concert F is concert F. A good step off, straight line of travel, tracking, all of those things are non-negotiables for quality, no matter what style of program you have, whether you're competitive, non-competitive, somewhere in between, et cetera, et cetera. So no matter what you do, what we do is we teach music to the best of our ability, to the highest expectation possible. So then that way our students can be able to be successful in whatever they're going to do musically and also beyond as well. And those principles, those life skills that you teach are important. And those life skills that you teach are not just, it's not just the band that does that. It's the curriculum that sets that standard, that sets that expectation. So that's one thing I really try to speak to a lot, growing up in, Nebraska, where I did, there were a lot of really great programs that were competitive. There were a lot of rural programs that were great programs, but they weren't competitive. Same thing with where I am here in Manhattan, Kansas. There's a lot of really great programs that, have a lot of different expectations, but what they do is they play well and they march well, no matter what. And I think that's something that, Wayne spoke to just a little while ago, that's what the book is intended to do. And hopefully that, students will walk away with that type of connection going into wherever they're going to be going to after that.
There have been two things that I've thought of since Wayne sent me the initial email and said, hey, would you be willing to do this? And one was just having known Wayne personally and seen his groups live. Okay, I had the opportunity to see his band live several times through those years in Ohio. And so it's not a book written by somebody who's asked people about marching band. Okay, it's a book written by someone who did it and did it at the highest levels. And that, to me, sets it apart from a lot of the products that are out there. The other part of that is that, so many times with classes, I don't know about you, Alex, or any of the four of us in undergrad, we maybe bought a textbook that we finished the class and then we took it back to the bookstore and sold it back to the bookstore. I don't know if anybody ever did that. I did that with my Grout book for music history. And then years later, I saw it at a library sale and I bought a $5 copy of it again. But anyway, this is a book that I don't feel bad at all telling my students, you need to have this book, not for this class, but for your career. You are investing in your career. And this book, you could be part of that. So those are two of the things I thought of. There were many others, but those are two of the main things.
That's great. Wayne, anything else before we start wrapping this up that you want to mention?
I just want to thank these two gentlemen for using the book and all the nice comments about it. And it makes me real happy that it's working in your situation. And your situations are, I'm sure, a little bit different from each other. But hopefully we're out there and doing some good in the world of music and marching.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, everybody, you go to marchingartseducation.com. You can find the book, you can find the ebook, you can find the online course version. All of this is resources that you need. The day's going to come when you're like, man, I'm having this problem with my grandparents. I don't know what to do. Let me go to this book and reread that part. So, Alex and Doug, I'm going to ask you each to say any final thought that you want to wrap up. Alex, I'll just randomly start with you. Anything you want to say as we're closing this conversation?
Well, I just want to give my gratitude to both you, Wayne, and Tim for, Wayne for for the textbook on its own, and then just, Tim taking it off, you both taking it off and just enhancing it. I just came across the ebook and then the online curriculum, and I wish I would have came across this a lot earlier. I think I'm going to be making some changes to the way that I teach the class, but just thank you for the resource and just continuing to evolve it, just like the activity. Just like what you said, we got to pay attention. We got to have our heads up, have our eyes up, and the fact that you both are bringing, I feel very grateful to be in on this conversation, and just thank you for all the work that you both are doing and just helping all of us to become better together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And thanks for all the work you're doing with those lucky students at K-State and all the people that you're influencing through the work you're doing. Doug, I guess you're going to get the final word. What would you like to say?
Wow. Okay. No pressure. Just kind of piggyback on Alex. I thank both of you for the canon of the work you've done to add to the canon, I should say. We all, Wayne says this in his book, don't teach the way you were taught necessarily. But that's something that happens. We tend to fall back on the way we were taught, and that may not work. The way I was taught in 1974 may not work in 2025. Okay? There might be the root at the very end, at the very bottom of it might be, but the rest of it may not be applicable. So just thanks for all that you're doing, and sharing with everybody involved in the activity. So there you go.
No, it's great. And thank you guys for taking time to have this conversation. Again, everybody, keep paying attention. You need to know what's going on. You may not even try. I'm not going to try to do that, but I need to know what's happening. I need to know where it's in, because it's going to go somewhere, and we need to all be paying attention. And Wayne, again, I will reiterate what they have said. I think you did a great job of creating a really useful template in the book that's usable by all the different types of bands and all the different types of situations, which are just so many, different ways that schools can be and bands can be. So thanks for doing that. And guys, this was fun. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great seeing you.